We dropped Anselmo before heading down. He wouldn't have survived anyway, but I wanted to see if taking him out granted anything. It didn't. Hardly a blip in the system. At the base of the ladder, I landed silent. Canary and Viry right behind me. First objective, liberate the prisoners. We breached the cell block, and every head turned toward UCS wide. Desperate. I stepped forward, voice steady. Men and women of Skyrim. Imperial, Stormcloak, or neither. Do you want to kill some Thalmor? That lit a spark. Canary pulled out the key, unlocked the cells. Some glared at her, but I shut that down quick. Without her, we wouldn't even be here. If you can't or won't fight, climb the ladder behind us and vanish. But if you want revenge, step forward. The hall trembled with purpose as I called, "Follow us to victory," or Sovngarde. My voice sharpened by speechcraft lit a fire in their eyes. The soldiers surged forward, bolstered by stolen elven steel, trampling the weaker defenders like kindling. Canary's warning tore through the air, "Get down!" as flames spiraled down the corridor. Standing in the Inferno's heart was Mural, his body wreathed in fire, daring us to advance. I clutched the amulet of the hearth and unleashed living blizzards now, and ice roared to life, clashing with the firestorm, choking it out. I didn't wait. "Run past the wizard! I'll handle him, kill them all!" The soldiers obeyed. Mural let them pass, until one dared strike. Ash. Just Ash. Canary stepped beside me, voice tense. "I'll help ye." I shoved her forward. "Destroy everything you see. I got this." I smirked as Mural eyed my companions darting past. "You have interesting companions," he remarked. I chuckled. "You knew I was in disguise." He lifted his hand arrogantly. "I wanted to see what you'd do. The moment Anselmo disappeared, I suspected. I already moved the heart. If you think you can stop us, you're wrong. This little act is meaningless." My laughter cracked through the air louder, more unhinged, his face twisted. "Have you lost your mind?" When the echo faded, I replied with calm fire. "Not at all. I'm just surprised you think we're here for the heart. Even if it were still here, I don't know how to destroy it. I came only to kill you." Now it was his turn to laugh. "You think you can kill me?" My smirk deepened. I charged. Flames erupted from his hands. I only wished he'd used frost. It would have saved me the trouble of dodging. I dodged each fiery blast, the flames growing more intense around him. But I wasn't getting any closer to engage in hand-to-hand combat. My hand radiated with purple energy. Necromantic ritual was ready. With a shout, "I choose you, flaming familiar!" A fiery wolf sprang from my hands and charged at him. His eyes glinted, but the wolf exploded in front of him. He barely dodged, stumbling back in an attempt to retreat. Thanks to the ritual, half the cost of summoning the wolf returned to me. I summoned 3 more, each charging forward, and his earlier arrogance began to fade. He raised his hand, a blue shield flickering into place just as the flaming familiars collided with him. The force shattered his ward, sending him reeling. With the last of my mana, I summoned 5 more. Each one exploded in quick succession, overwhelming him. His defenses were crumbling, and I could barely catch my breath, having exceeded the summoning limit. It wasn't long before I activated Hersine's ring. I transformed into a normal werewolf and charged forward, leaping onto him and sinking my teeth into his neck despite the flames. His eyes widened in shock, trying to scream, "A werk! Urk!" He struggled, but I tore out his throat as I pulled away. The light in his eyes faded rapidly. With one swift motion, I tore out his heart and devoured it. Heart consumed, werewolf perk point gained. I moved from one Thalmor body to the next, devouring their hearts, gaining 5 perk points in total, excluding the one I got from Mural's heart. I exhaled, deactivating the ring's power, and collapsed, aching from the strain. As long as I kept my focus, I could shift back at will. I stood, groaning in pain, and stumbled forward, past the dead prisoners. Most of the bodies belonged to the Thalmor. Eventually, I reached the factory. I found a group arguing. Seems the Stormcloaks and Imperial soldiers started bickering after dispatching their captors. I knocked a bottle off a table. It shattered, and they all turned to face me, weapons drawn. With a grin, I spoke. "Calm down, everyone. Is this conversation helpful so far?" A Stormcloak and an Imperial soldier stepped forward. We could finally speak like adults after all. We were still inside a Thalmor factory. They all paused and did as instructed. The Stormcloak was a commander, his armor giving it away. Honestly, one of my favorites. Maybe I should fashion a cape from animal hide. The Stormcloak spoke up. "Is this part of a scheme by the Imperials, collaborating with the Thalmor?" What a ridiculous question. I rolled my eyes. "Are any of you the daughter of Angeline from Solitude?" When no one raised a hand, I smiled. "Trick question. I already knew she was killed here." Her severed hand tipped off the Imperial interrogator. I pointed at Canary, but before the Stormcloak could speak, I slapped him. "Get a grip. Not every Altmer is a Thalmor. and not every Nord is a Stormcloak. The Stormcloak officer raised his hand before his comrades could react. You're right, I was making assumptions. The Imperial soldier, dressed in standard issue but wielding a scimitar like sword, stepped forward. Sir, do you know what was really happening here? A Stormcloak and an Imperial soldier stepped forward. We could finally speak like adults after all. We were still inside a Thalmor factory. They all paused and did as instructed. The Stormcloak was a commander, his armor giving it away. Honestly, one of my favorites. Maybe I should fashion a cape from animal hide. The Stormcloak spoke up. Is this part of a scheme by the Imperials collaborating with the Thalmor? What a ridiculous question. I rolled my eyes. Are any of you the daughter of Angeline from Solitude? When no one raised a hand, I smiled. Trick question. I already knew she was killed here. Her severed hand tipped off the Imperial interrogator. I pointed at Canary, but before the Stovek Frostwain, the strategic mastermind faced a revelation in the depths of Nirn's twisted simulation. With a frozen quill in hand, he had the power to rewrite reality, bending time, quests, and even fate itself. But as the universe splintered, a deeper, darker truth emerged. Echoes of broken gods and corrupted allies surrounded him, and every choice he made fractured the timeline further. Vec wasn't just rewriting quests, he was becoming the story itself. As he neared the end loop, Terminality failsafe designed to reset everything, he was forced to confront the ultimate question. Restore the world or rewrite it completely? The stakes? The very fabric of existence hung in the balance. Every twist, every turn, led him closer to the edge of oblivion, but also to the power to define it all. RM Cloak could speak, I slapped him. Get a grip. Not every Altmer is a Thalmor, and not every Nord is a Stormcloak. The Stormcloak officer raised his hand before his comrades could react. You're right, I was making assumptions. The Imperial soldier, dressed in standard issue but wielding a scimitar, like sword, stepped forward. Sir, do you know what was really happening here? The commander, standing tall with resolve, looks at the path ahead, knowing the gravity of his decisions. He turns to the young soldier holding the special sword, a teenager with eyes full of uncertainty, yet capable of a future far beyond his years. We can trust him, I think, as the tension lingers. As the soldiers gather, the Stormcloak commander points toward a ladder, suggesting a careful, alternating climb. One Stormcloak, one Imperial, he says. The march begins with purpose. As they move, the young soldier hesitates, speaking up, Sir, will we bury this place? His voice carries a quiet determination, and I look at him, considering his request. The fate of this crumbling land now rests on the shoulders of those who dare to rewrite its future. Do you like this personality? I patted his shoulder and asked, So you joined the Legion as soon as you could? He nodded. I sighed and shook my head. I'll say your prayers for you, kid. Save yours for her funeral. You're holding her only memento after all. He nodded, then ran after the others. Vairi glanced at me. Will you actually say prayers? I shrugged. I don't know any, so it'll probably be silent to spare myself from the cringe. Suddenly, Canary spoke behind me, making me jump. What's cringe? I held my chest from the scare. If it weren't for those cheesy tactics, Mural would have been a real boss fight. The nerves from that battle still lingered. I waved Canary off and asked, Did you manage the teleportation platform thing? She nodded. It's called the Tonal Sending Gate, but yeah, I froze. Why is it called the Tonal Sending Gate? Both she and Vairi perked up, and Canary explained it uses tonal magic to connect places together. The Dwemer technology, something the Thalmor had stolen, was fascinating. I made a mental note of it. Tonal magics were complicated, and while Thuums were technically a form of tonal magic, I still struggled to master shouts, despite studying my draconic dictionary cover to cover. Vairi asked, So what do we do here? I glanced around the room. The red crystal heart was missing. The copy of Alduin's wall shattered, and the tables and shelves had been stripped of their ingredients. Even the dragon's corpse was gone, something I really wanted. I sighed harvest. I cast the spell, and magic covered the room. My inventory instantly filled, and I had to start dropping things. Canary, wide-eyed, asked, How did you do that? I held the harvest spell in my hand, dropping items from my inventory. Magic. I'm a master at alteration. I can bend any spell into a new form. Canary pointed at the falling items. How are you doing that? Vairi patted her shoulder. Come on, get over it. The answer is magic, she said, her smug look almost unbearable. But of course she was right. The answer is advanced magic. Canary sighed, rubbing her forehead. So, let's talk about destroying this place. Got any ideas on how to do that? It was an early morning in Dawnstar, and I lay in an in-bed. Canary had paid for the rooms, and I couldn't shake the feeling of accomplishment. Had I really destroyed their base of operations? That Thalmor cave, or factory, whatever it was no more. Using Splinter and Harvest on the mountain had worked no avalanche, no extra chaos, just a massive collapse. I felt relieved. Pulling out my journal, I set to work on a new documentation of my abilities. This time, I made sure it was neat and compact. I updated my notes on the spells I'd created and the new ways I'd discovered to use them. The more I refined my powers, the clearer the path ahead seemed. In a world where reality bends and quests glitch, Vec Frostwain stands at the edge of the unknown. With his frozen quill in hand, he's rewriting fate itself, hacking the system that governs time, space, and destiny. But the deeper he goes, the more the world unravels. Alternate versions of himself are born from fractured timelines, and the very rules of existence begin to collapse. Each new choice seems to twist reality further, leaving echoes of ghosts, memories that shouldn't exist, and quests that repeat without end. Vec's goal is clear: reach the end loop terminal and stop the world from resetting itself. But in this fractured universe, nothing is ever truly in his control. As his enemies become his reflections and allies take the form of his former selves, Vec must navigate a maze of glitching realities and paradoxes to rewrite the ultimate ending or risk being erased from existence entirely. My speechcraft stayed capped at 100, and just when I thought I was done, a new perk appeared. No name, no hint, just speechcraft. No details, no flavor text, just a silent challenge. The quest it gave me? Max out every speechcraft perk and pass some kind of test didn't matter what, as long as it pushed my skill to its limits. I tossed my points around, ignoring the mystery perk for now. Only 2 perks left unclaimed. I figured I could smooth talk my way past some bandits later to wrap up the quest. For now, I needed coin fast. I flipped open a fresh journal page, brainstorming. Bard work, maybe? Speechcraft had to be good for more than escaping fights. And if I timed it right, we'd arrive in Solitude just as the Ola festival began. Showtime. The festival lasted for 2 weeks, and I saw an opportunity to make some money, though not as much as I truly needed. But things could change with the Sleeping Tree sap. I had unwittingly claimed the tree that produces it, so why not take advantage and monopolize the trade? The only problem was, selling it in Solitude was a terrible idea. For one, it was too risky. 2, never sell in your own backyard, that's just asking for trouble. In Solitude, guards turned a blind eye to the skooma trade in Riften, but the reverse was true in Riften. They cared, and they cared a lot. Probably more for the profits they could gain. As I pondered this, Vairi walked in. Canary had been stingy and had booked a shared room for us. I froze, staring at her. She looked at me and raised an eyebrow. What? Something on my face? She had just come from a bath. Do you like this personality? The festival lasted for 2 weeks, and I saw an opportunity to make some money, though not as much as I truly needed. But things could change with the Sleeping Tree sap. I had unwittingly claimed the tree that produces it, so why not take advantage and monopolize the trade? The only problem was, selling it in Solitude was a terrible idea. For one, it was too risky. 2, never sell in your own backyard. That's just asking for trouble. In Solitude, guards turned a blind eye to the skooma trade in Riften, but the reverse was true in Riften. They cared, and they cared a lot. Probably more for the profits they could gain. As I pondered this, Vairi walked in. Canary had been stingy and had booked a shared room for us. I froze, staring at her. She looked at me and raised an eyebrow. What? Something on my face? She had just come from a bath. Do you like this personality? I had forgotten how much I needed a proper bath. I sniffed myself and realized I was in desperate need of a cleaning spell. Surely there had to be one out there. Speaking of cleanliness, a sauna could be a fantastic idea. Not too hard for the players to put together, and magic could easily enhance it. Winterhold would be the perfect location for it. I jotted down a note to rebuild Winterhold with a sauna in mind, though it was a project for the distant future. I'd need the right kind of allies for that ones who'd be friendly with the college. Winterhold was firmly under Stormcloak rule, but replacing the Jarl with the Archmage wouldn't be that tough. I glanced back at Vairi and raised an eyebrow. What are you doing? I asked. She looked back at me with a hint of irritation. What? It's too hot wearing just armor. Not like you gave me any normal clothes. I blinked. Why did I need to provide her with normal clothes? I gave her an allowance. Didn't she buy any? She sat on her bed, in her underwear, across the room. She stopped and glanced at me. Do you like what you see? I blinked, confused. Are you trying to seduce me? She stumbled over her words. What? Why would I? I just want to be comfortable. I shook my head. It's early morning. You just got out of the bath, and you're in your underwear, even though we're leaving in an hour or two. She clicked her tongue. Just shut up, she muttered under her breath. You fucking idiot. My eye twitched, but I kept my cool. Vair was attractive, but I wasn't about to act on that, not yet. I paused. Want some reading lessons? People usually read at a time like this. Vairi blinked and then smiled. Great, let's do that. The scent of burning wood filled the air. Makeshift stalls were set up nearby. In the heart of the city, there was this massive chunk of meat roasted over a pit of fire. It looked like a mammoth, slow cooking in all its glory. The Burning of Olaf festival? Way bigger than before. I checked my quests. Still had the escort of the fair on my list. Elisive needed me to keep her safe through the festival and help her unwind. To be real though, I'd already lost track of Irie. Canary, who was in my group, bailed as soon as we entered the city, probably off to report what was going on. So here I was, stuck with the decision. Do I stick to my quest, or make some coin with bardic skills? Maybe I could even charm some gold out of the Jarl. After all, I was aiming for a free house in the city. For now though, Elisive seemed like the best bet. I still had plans for the money had been scheming all the way back to Solitude. I made my way to the Blue Palace, eyeing the market stalls. The Khajiit caravan had set up outside Castle Dur, with guards keeping watch while they sold their elsewhere cuisine. The truth is, they seemed perfectly normal. Meat pies, some fish cakes, and raisin cookies, nothing too special. But it was strange that they were allowed into the city for the festival. Usually, they're not allowed in as a group, but here they were, making some coin with their raisin cookies. How did they get the raisins, I wondered. Entering the Blue Palace, I noticed the security was tighter than usual. Magic lingered in the air, or maybe it was the walls. Sabine must have used some fireproofing magic. Elisive wasn't sitting on the throne, so I made my way to Falk's office. He opened the door just as I knocked. Good timing, Elisive is. Well, just follow me. I trailed behind him to another room in the palace, which seemed to be her bedroom, though the layout was tricky. Falk knocked softly. Elisive? I brought someone who can help. Elisive's voice echoed through the room as she shouted, No, I may have allowed the festival to happen, but that doesn't mean I approve of it. Who knows that those monsters might be waiting for me? Falk's sigh was heavy, his patience wearing thin. Elisive, can you at least open the door? But her response was sharp. No, I won't. I am safe here. I stepped forward, offering a solution. Falk, I've got this. I knocked firmly. Jarl, I am Vek. You remember me? Falk asked me to escort you during the festival to help you relax. Her voice came back, hesitant but resolute. I'm sorry, Sir Vek. But I do not, I interrupted her, my tone firm but understanding. Would Torrig want you to sulk like this? Falk's eyes widened for a brief moment, then silence. A moment later, I heard the distinct sound of her stomping toward the door, the battle between her doubts and the truth of her own heart shifting in that quiet space. She pushed the door open with a deep frown, her eyes slightly red from crying. The tension was palpable as the Jarl's vulnerability became clear. Sighing, she muttered, Give me 5 minutes to get ready. You're right, I shouldn't hide. She shut the door softly, leaving Falk to nod, a hint of sadness in his eyes. Good call. Still, it's tough seeing my old friend in such a way, I shrugged. Elisive has 3 things on her mind. She wants to be a strong Jarl, honor Torrig's memory, and make the court proud. After all, most of them were close to Torrig. Falk nodded in agreement. You've got a good read on things. I'm the only one who really knew Elisive before all this. I shrugged again, shifting the topic. Hey, any chance I can get some spending money for the festival? Falk chuckled and handed me a pouch of gold. 100 septums, that's the best I can do. I raised an eyebrow. Seems like you were expecting me to ask. He smirked just as Elisive opened the door. She was dressed in royal, but clearly low-key robes, a look that screamed she wanted to avoid attention, though I doubted that would work. I extended my hand and gave a slight bow, feeling like a teen taking their date to prom. She accepted my hand and followed, while Falk silently slipped away, leaving me with the Jarl. As we stepped out of the Blue Palace, I asked, How should I address you tonight? You went with the incognito look for a reason, right? She nodded. Just call me Eli for tonight, Vek, she stammered, looking away when she said my name. I caught a glimpse of her face, and it seemed like she was lost in a memory. Maybe from someone named Torrig. Not that it mattered. As we walked, Elisive kept glancing around, not out of curiosity, but more like someone who was constantly watching their back. In a soft voice, I added, Looks like the Bard's College set up a game. A carnival booth popped up near the college bright banners, tinny music, and... Was that a mini archery range? With actual toy bows? Whose idea was this absurdity? Eli squinted at it, unimpressed. A game? She asked flatly. Just then, a familiar bard strolled over Forgettable Face, definitely one of those side quest wanderers. Why don't you two give it a shot? He chimed. I turned to Eli, grinning. Wanna try it? Might be fun. She sighed, stepped up, and awkwardly grabbed the tiny weapon like it offended her ancestors. While she fumbled with it like a frost troll at a tea party, I felt a tug on my awareness. Lurbuck was skulking nearby, whispering like a shadow with stage fright. Psst, psst, Vek, over here. I kept Eli in my peripheral and slid toward the whisper, because in this world, even carnival games come with plot twists. Is this conversation helpful so far? Like my idea? Originally, I suggested an archery range for a bit of fun, even for the guards to show off their skills. But Viarmo came up with this. Pretty clever, huh? I smirked. It's smart, but speaking of Viarmo, when's he starting the King Olaf burning? Lurbuck nodded. That's just before midnight, so you've got about 4 hours. Night was closing in, and I was thinking of taking the Jarl back to the Blue Palace before that. Maybe even make a bit of gold on the way. I need to get back to escorting the lady. See you around, Lurbuck. He nodded, and I was right beside Elisif again. She was still trying her hand at the archery game. She'd hit the target twice and missed once. The last 2 arrows missed, but she nailed the final shot. I smiled. Well done. The Jarl gave a faint smile, while the bard, watching the game, grinned. Congrats. You get a prize. The prizes were nothing special. Rushed together, some books, wines, and what seemed like random instruments. The bard grinned. If the prizes don't catch your eye, you can always grab some septums. Elisif shot him a look, saying, I'll just take the septums. He handed her a pouch of gold, roughly 20 coins. The Jarl turned to me and asked, Now what? I sighed mentally. We can do whatever you want. Most of the stalls are selling festival food, but I'm sure we'll find some with clothes or jewelry. Nearly all the stores in Solitude have set up stalls to make some extra coin. She scanned the area. I see. The festival's more important than I realized. Canceling it could have hurt the economy. I doubted it, but kept listening. Torrig and I met during the New Year celebrations at a nobles party held by the court. Maybe we should host more citywide events. I thought about the only citywide event I knew, the public executions. It was a good idea, though. It could boost the morale of the city. And if similar events took place in other cities, it could have more benefits. Many people, yourself included, have lost family to the war. Even just a day of peace can soothe those drowning in sorrow. She gave a small nod. Lead the way, then. I turned and guided her through the bustling market, her gaze lingering not on power or prestige, but on Kanja's stall. Simple, sweet, run by no one special. Want some taffy? I asked. She hesitated. They're for kids. I didn't care. Dropped 3 gold. Took the candy. The vendor waved. She leaned close. Do you think he recognized me? I shook my head. Doesn't matter. Here's your taffy. A smile, uncertain but real. Beneath the title, the Jarl was just another soul unsure of her place. Let's keep talking, I said. What do you want? What happens if the war stops? I meant the coming ceasefire, the one linked to the Dragonborn's quest. Her response? A pause. Why ask me? I raised an eyebrow. I want to know if you'll be a good Jarl. The war will eventually come to a close, but not without some sacrifices. I could end it myself, as long as no one like me steps into the fray. What I'm getting at is simple. Do you value your people more, or those of Skyrim? She halted in her tracks, a look of understanding in her eyes. I see where you're going. I'm not exactly a proactive Jarl. My court either doesn't respect me, or they just don't have the power to help. Even now, after you cleared the Pelagius Wing, nothing's been done about it. You cleared out Wolfskull Cave and stopped Potema, but what has the Blue Palace really done? They barely help with piracy or trade protection. I couldn't deny the truth in her words. From what I had observed, if the quests weren't completed by one of us, they would have been eventually. Meaning the only real difference I made was dealing with Potema. I smiled genuinely. It happens. That's why you have powerful vassals. But the real question is, are they ambitious enough to help? She frowned, already knowing the answer. I won't get it, will I? She muttered, thinking deeply as we stopped in front of a clothing stand. It was clear who had set it up. I thought she was eyeing the clothes, but her next words proved otherwise. She was dressed in royal, but clearly low-key robes, a look that screamed she wanted to avoid attention, though I doubted that would work. I extended my hand and gave a slight bow, feeling like a teen taking their date to prom. She accepted my hand and followed, while Falk silently slipped away, leaving me with the Jarl. As we stepped out of the Blue Palace, I asked, How should I address you tonight? You went with the incognito look for a reason, right? She nodded. Just call me Eli for tonight, Vec, she stammered, looking away when she said my name. I caught a glimpse of her face, and it seemed like she was lost in a memory, maybe from someone named Torrig. Not that it mattered. As we walked, Elisif kept glancing around, not out of curiosity, but more like someone who was constantly watching their back. In a soft voice, I added, Looks like the Bard's College set up a game. He was always trying to get into my personal space, either with his creepy flirting or constant remarks about my potential remarriage. I paused. Those were in fact good reasons. I had considered cutting ties with him myself after all. I knew he was aligned with the wrong side, dealing with the Thalmor and the Thieves Guild. Not to mention, he was involved in shady business with drugs, having been swindled by a notorious gang over some illicit goods. If I was going to establish my own operations, I had to eliminate any competition near Solitude. I smiled and gave my word to the Jarl that I'd take care of it. That wrapped up most of our conversation. I escorted the Jarl back to the Blue Palace, and with a new mission ahead, I headed back to the festival. Removing a Thane was just the start of a simple task, but I knew it was part of something much bigger. I could sense the chain of events unfolding in my quest log. Smirking, I made my way back to the Khajiit caravan, but I wasn't there to chat. I grabbed a lute and strummed it, promising to play something special. Rasad grinned slyly. Yes, you did. So what's this strange noise you call music? With a shrug, I strummed the lute awkward at first, then something clicked. The sound twisted, transformed, until it wasn't just noise, it was rhythm, rebellion, raw power. People turned, guards stared. Khajiit started hawking cookies. Resad leaned in, eyes now lit with curiosity. A crowd formed as I slipped into a memory-born metal riff distorted. Wild, but alive. The wooden strings strained, but I forced the sound into form, a roar from another world. With a final screech of strings, I bowed, helmet in hand. Coins clinked in, applause faded. Then, that was brilliant! Viarmo's hands gripped my shoulders. Where did you learn to play like that? After my performance, I expected something like this, but not so soon. Instruments were hard to get where I lived, I explained, so I used minerals instead of wood to craft them. Viarmo's eyes lit up. That's incredible, do you? But Rasad interrupted him, asking if I could recreate the instruments from memory. I sighed. Sure, they're pretty similar to lutes, but most bards wouldn't use them. Are you planning to sell them? Viarmo frowned. I didn't even think about playing them for music. Rasad nodded. The music you played, I've heard something like it when I was a child. I'd like to send the instrument to elsewhere for study and pay for any music that could go with it. I rubbed my chin, surprised by the offer. Viarmo looked over at Resad, asking if he'd ever heard music like the one played earlier. Resad nodded, recalling a time long ago when he heard a wandering Khajiit play something similar and odd. Green-furred Khajiit with piercing yellow eyes, who, in hindsight, he suspected was a vampire. I held back my surprise. A vampiric green Khajiit? That was a new one. Odin had mentioned something similar. I couldn't help but laugh. A vampire rock-playing Khajiit? That would definitely be one to remember. Viarmo perked up, asking if this music had a name. It's called rock, I replied, though I added my own twist. Rezan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. This one is intrigued by this rock music, but perhaps it's best we talk about this later. The guards seem to be watching us more closely now. I nodded in agreement. Yeah, I've got other things to take care of too. As the street began to empty, it was clear the Khajiit would soon have to leave the city and set up camp. Just before I left, Viarmo stopped me. Do you want to see the burning of Olaf? It's not much, but we wouldn't have this festival without your help, I smirked. You would have done it anyway. With just a little push and the loyal Lurbuck at his side, things were finally falling into place. Viarmo laughed, but his eyes lingered as I made my way toward the ancient tree. Plans are coming together, I whispered to the branches of Odin. Time for you to keep your end of the deal. The tree twitched as the wind stirred, and its voice echoed in my mind. I hear the whispers. You plan on using my sap as a narcotic. How does this fit our deal? I smirked, unbothered by the inquiry. Simple. When the Khajiits sell the sap, you'll be aboard the ship. I can't drag you across the land, so this is the best way. Odin's voice resonated again. And what if I grow too strong, connecting with the Hist Overmind? Your trade could collapse. I chuckled, unfazed. No trade, no travel. In the world of shifting allegiances and uncapped promises, a trade with Odin takes an unexpected turn. Khajiit and other traders had already failed to meet the expectations of the Hist, leading to their fall. Now, it was my turn to navigate the deal, but would I uphold it? Odin's telepathic response echoed with resolve, confirming their part in the exchange. With a silent nod, the deal was sealed. Odin, after growing a mysterious fruit, handed it over with instructions to eat it for the promised reward. As I bit into the fruit, the floodgates opened. Hist! Argonian arts flooded my mind-ancient techniques, magic spells, and martial arts that I couldn't fully access without the right ingredients from Black Marsh. However, 11 new spells appeared on my list, far more than I anticipated. The journey wasn't over yet, and more challenges awaited as I delved deeper into Odin's world. With business with the old psychic done, I gave a nod but before I could leave, he chimed in, voice faint and fading. Color me impressed. You integrated the knowledge faster than expected. Hope it's what you wanted. I need to sleep now. Then, silence. The connection blinked out like a cut wire, but something lingered, something new. I felt it like static in my spine. I couldn't help the smirk creeping in as I headed toward the winking skeever, curiosity tugging at my thoughts. The first gift, wisdom of the Hist, wasn't flashy. It was a Threada passive one that linked me directly to the ancient tree mines, letting us speak without words and, apparently, boosting my regeneration. No idea how much, but it pulsed subtly under my skin. The second gift, now that was a weapon. Umbrellic Hissed Blessing, activated like a timed spell, forming a shimmering dome that cut Magic's bite in half while absorbing the rest. 2 minutes of shielded defiance, with a reset clock of 24 hours. Not bad, definitely worth testing with a real burn. The last? It wasn't something I could just pull from a spell menu. The knowledge was there, swirling and dense, needing to be unpacked thought by thought. Whatever came next, I'd have to wrestle it into clarity before it cracked me open from the inside. Vec Frostwain's journey takes a bizarre turn as he delves deeper into the hidden layers of Nirn's simulation. With the frozen quill in hand, he manipulates quests, bends timelines, and activates relics never meant to be disturbed. But the more Vec twists reality, the more unstable it becomes, leaving him facing impossible choices. Amid a fractured world where logic crumbles and time folds, Vec uncovers the End Loop Terminal, a failsafe that could reset everything. But will he rewrite the world's fate or let it collapse into chaos? Each new spell he uncovers only adds to the complexity some offer, healing, others ward off danger, and still, others challenge his very understanding of magic. It's not just about survival anymore, it's about controlling a universe on the brink of self-destruction. Is this conversation helpful so far? The illusion and alteration were alike, but I had some inkling of their workings. Shadow Blend likely linked to the Shadow Scale, while Xenotic Shift seemed to be some form of beastly transformation. Both Khajiit and Argonian had animalistic or monstrous blood, though I couldn't say for sure. Stopping in my tracks, I pondered. Once I sleep, as long as the belt stays dormant, I dive into these spells and analyze them in greater detail. The real dilemma was whether to leave Solitude for a day to test magic, or focus on my latest quest. A quick flip of a coin settled its spells it was. And what better place to test them than Meridia's Shrine? Preparing was easy, since it was just a short hike from Solitude. As I set off, Vyre waved, asking where I was headed. I chuckled. Not this time, just me. Off to an old Daedric shrine. I decided it was best to go solo for a while. Vyre seemed a bit down, but she shrugged it off and said, "Fine, I'll practice my reading." I nodded. She was eager to learn more after I taught her the basics. It was good for her, too. Without saying another word, I left the city. As I walked past the guard patrol, they waved. "Hey, where are you heading, Vec?" they called out. I pointed toward the mountain. "An old shrine. Gonna clear it out and see if I can find any artifacts." They laughed and waved me on. Opening my journal, I checked the stats. Sure enough, my reputation in Solitude was growing. If it keeps going, I might max it out soon. I rubbed my chin, noticing that I also had reputation with the Imperial Legion. It seemed like everywhere related to Solitude was rising. But what would this reputation system really do, aside from making me famous? Being famous isn't always a good thing. I hiked up the mountain, my eyes catching the towering statue marking the spot. I couldn't help but laugh, realizing I hadn't gone straight to the Shrinino, I just casually passed by it. Instead, I found myself stepping around it and stumbling upon the word wall. There it was, the legendary Elemental Fury Shout. A voice inside me wished I could use it. Sadly, no such luck. No words for me to master. Nothing to claim. My hands turned to Azura's Star, what used to be it. What a mess. This wasn't the same artifact I had transformed into the Black Star. No, this thing had changed again, now holding a black soul gem at its core, surrounded by the familiar blue edge. I couldn't believe my eyes as I read the description. Once Azura's Star, a soul gem of immense power now converted into a prison to contain wayward souls. These souls cannot be used in enchanting. I rubbed my eyes. What could this thing even be for? It clearly held Patima's soul, but there was still something I didn't quite get. Wano. What was I supposed to use this on next? I slipped the star back into my inventory, a sigh escaping as the glow of summoning magic filled my hand, except it wasn't the usual shade. Blue, cold, wrong. Summon Potema, I said, and the air cracked as a pale woman emerged, blinking like a ghost dragged from the void. Her eyes locked onto mine recognition. Rage. You! She shrieked, and frost burst from her palms, shards of ice slicing past me like warnings from a broken world. Again she fired, and again the spells veered wide, her face twisting with disbelief. What sorcery is this? How have you bound my soul? She demanded, dead but defiant. I didn't answer. I didn't flinch. I reached for her not in fear, but in control. Whatever she was, she couldn't touch me. Not anymore. Touching her felt odd. I knew she was a ghost, but when my hand passed through her, it was like syrup. Weird, right? But then she pulled away, her face twisted in fury. What did you do to me? What is this prison? Answer me, mortal. I just shrugged. The Azura's Star, a standard Daedric artifact. Somehow, I turned it into a prison. Crazy, huh? She roared at me. Free me now. I am no servant. I am a queen. But I interrupted her. Of what? Her face froze for a second, realization hitting her ghostly features. You mortal, what's your name? I smirked. Vec. No last name. I like to keep some things to myself. Names have power. After all dragons, Daedra, you name it. She stared, processing it all. Fatima, once a strategist, had a lot to think about. In a world where reality itself is manipulated, a tactical genius faces an unstable existence as he battles forces that defy time and logic. His summoning of a ghostly witch with centuries of magic offers knowledge, but trust is thin and alliances even thinner. As their uneasy interaction unfolds, the witch reveals her vast power and offers him the world. Yet his indifference only fuels the tension. His desire for control is tested, not by the witch, but by the very fabric of existence itself. With the line between friend and foe growing ever more uncertain, he must navigate this fractured reality. But can he rewrite his fate before it unravels completely? The narrative becomes a twisting maze of power, betrayal, and the fragile balance between manipulation and trust. The true question: can you ever trust a ghost when reality itself can be rewritten at will? She didn't have much that caught my interest, so I played indifferent, flicking at my ear like I couldn't care less. You know anything about tonal magic? I asked, watching her ghostly expression tighten strange how emotive a dead queen could be. Probably trained herself to exaggerate every look just to keep her secrets buried deeper. She stayed quiet. I smirked. What? Nothing to say about tonal magics? She bristled. I know them, but no one can teach that, not even the Dwemer. Her frown deepened. There's really nothing you want from me? I shrugged, honest enough to be dangerous. Maps, relics, treasure. I don't trust your spells. And the one kind of magic I want, you say can't be taught. Truth was, she had things I was curious about, but the risk? Too high. Objects I can fix. Curses I can crack. Magic? That's chaos. She scoffed, her form flickering. No deal then. The magic binding me here fades. May you rot beside your treasures. Then she dissolved into dust, leaving silence thicker than any spell. In the heart of a crumbling world, Vec Frostwain's reality twists like a shattered mirror. With the frozen quill in hand, he bends quests, manipulates time, and fights against the fading laws of existence. Armed with stolen artifacts and fragmented timelines, Vec must face echoing enemies and allies, each a reflection of his own fractured past. As he ventures deeper into the corrupted codes of Nirn's simulation, his mind fractures too. Bound by a legacy he never asked for, Vec stands at the edge of the end loop terminal, where all paths either reset or collapse the universe entirely. But rewriting this world, one fragmented quest at a time, may come at the ultimate cost. His own mind. You claim to be the Prince of Light, yet you don't seem to shine as bright as expected. Just a joke, of course, but the point stands. I'm the only one available to purify your shrine, aren't I? Silence. Just because someone holds divine power doesn't mean they're immune to logic. I figured that if they sent someone else, the worst that could happen was an extra challenge. Suddenly, I was yanked into the sky. It felt like I was shot out of a cannon, and my stomach did somersaults as I gasped for air. When I stopped, Meridia's laughter echoed, mocking my fear. Afraid of heights? How typical for a mortal. No matter how sharp your mind is, you're still bound by mortality. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to relax. If you could speak to me down there, why bring me all the way up here? She laughed again. I wanted to judge you for myself, mortal. You're a worthy fighter, I admit, and maybe, just maybe, you can help me. Meridia's voice echoed in my mind, sharp and commanding. I can't afford to be picky anymore, she stated. Even if you're not my champion, I will not tolerate my sacred shrine being defiled. After a pause, she added, I will watch you closely. You have 5 hours to cleanse my temple of its undead filth. Guide my light through the shrine by lighting the beacons. The greater the light, the greater my radiance will be restored. Malkorin, the necromancer, will be guarding the final beacon, the one that holds Dawnbreaker. You may take it as a reward if you complete this task within the time I have given you. The moment she fell silent, a wave of unease washed over me. As I dropped to the ground once more, a sickening feeling crept over me, but with it came a new effect. She really was watching. Checking my status, I saw a small but useful boost to my damage against undead. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. I had no time to prepare, but with Lich's Bane and Flaming Familiar at my side, I was ready. Meridia's voice rang in my ears again, urging me forward into the dark. You claim to be the Prince of Light, yet you don't seem to shine as bright as expected. Just a joke, of course, but the point stands. I'm the only one available to purify your shrine, aren't I? Silence. Just because someone holds divine power doesn't mean they're immune to logic. I figured that if they sent someone else, the worst that could happen was an extra challenge. Suddenly, I was yanked into the sky. It felt like I was shot out of a cannon, and my stomach did somersaults as I gasped for air. When I stopped, Meridia's laughter echoed, mocking my fear. Afraid of heights? How typical for a mortal. No matter how sharp your mind is, you're still bound by mortality. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to relax. If you could speak to me down there, why bring me all the way up here? She laughed again. I wanted to judge you for myself, mortal. You're a worthy fighter, I admit, and maybe just maybe you can help me. In the shadow of the Daedric Prince, I found myself gripped by an overwhelming sense of urgency. The door loomed ahead, and as I pushed it open, a stench far worse than the crypts hit me like a tidal wave. Holding my breath, I braved the nauseating air, my eyes scanning the room. A unique Imperial helm sat before me, once rare, now just a relic, though still a powerful symbol of the past. Meridia's voice echoed in my mind, recounting a forgotten champion nothing more than a whisper of a time long gone, lost to history after the Oblivion Crisis. But I couldn't resist something gnawed at me. Why do necromancers target you, I asked. Silence followed. The light through the first pedestal shimmered, and I pressed forward, the beam flickering brighter as I moved. But Meridia wasn't done yet. Her voice cracked the air, sending a chill down my spine, as if to remind me that in this world of fractured realities, no question was safe. The undead twisted by her light were unlike any other, stronger, cursed, exiled. She warned me, her voice like thunder inside my bones. He is my prisoner. Remember that, Missouri Artal. I nodded quickly, pretending it was curiosity. But she read my thoughts anyway. I had imagined a vampire forged by her light, a nightmare hiding in code. Then came the corrupted shades. The first fell with one strike, the second survived. My disgust only grew. Each death pulled her voice closer. You hate them, she said, more than my other champions, if not for your mindset. But she was wrong. I didn't hate the undead. I hated those who chose to become them. I ignored the Daedric Prince. Having a godly being hovering over my shoulder was more annoying than anything else. I activated the pedestal with the beacon and pressed forward. An old cave-in forced me to take a detour, but I didn't mind. A corrupted shade tried to ambush me, but I dodged its attack and sliced through it effortlessly. I reached the thick iron doors leading deeper into the shrine, though technically they led outside first. As I circled the shrine, I found a large locked chest. A quick kick broke the lock, and the chest fell open to reveal a small stash, a pocket of gold, an amethyst, and an enchanted mace. I'd sell the mace later. For now, I moved toward the door that led back inside. I pulled out some oil, coated my pale blade, and set it aflame. The sword crackled with energy as I swung it a few times. Despite the fiery hiss, it handled just fine. Most of the dungeon was a mindless slaughter of corrupted shades, but the next room was the worst of them all, packed to the brim with the creatures. I sliced through them effortlessly, each of their forms falling apart with a single slash. It seemed that corrupted shades were more vulnerable to fire than regular undead, which made sense given that they were ghosts with physical bodies. Fire, after all, was their greater weakness. As the corrupted shades perished, Meridia's voice echoed through the chamber. Now, activate my beacons and guide my light further into the temple. In the old games, Malkorn remained unaware of your presence, but I had a feeling this time he would know. I activated the next pedestal, feeling the room grow warmer. The stench of the dead shifted, replaced by an unfamiliar scent. The light redirected toward the next pedestal blazed brighter, and I groaned. It was the one that required parkour. Thankfully, it wasn't too difficult. I reached the pedestal, shielding my eyes as the light intensified upon activation. Meridia's voice boomed. Yes! Feel my presence! March on, my little knight! Ha ha ha! I frowned, but accepted that this was just how Daedra were. I had one more pedestal to activate in this room. I encountered more corrupted shades, and though my sword's flames were dwindling, I managed to slay the last shade before the pale blade was extinguished. Upon examining the sword, I found it cracked frost, enchanted, yet scorched by burning oil. It was no longer of use, so I sheathed it. Moving onward through another set of iron doors, I reached the second to last pedestal. Upon activating it, blinding light pierced the temple, and I could hear Malkorn and his shades stirring ahead. Dropping to one knee to remain hidden, I cast Detect Undead, revealing 5 shades and, to my surprise, Malkorn himself mid-transformation into a lich. I swiftly cast an alteration spell, making the staircase slippery. As I heard doors opening below, I spilled oil down the altered stairs, summoned a familiar, and coated it with oil. The familiar dashed past the shades, creating an oily trail, guiding it forward. In the heart of a collapsing world, Vec Frostwain steps into a ruthless battle with destiny. As the corrupted shades stagger upward, he calmly executes his strategy, unleashing a fiery wolf familiar that collides with the shades, igniting them in a blaze. The oil trail from his previous ally feeds the flames, enveloping the world in a chaotic inferno. The heat pushes Malkorn into a scream of agony, his form melting away into ghostly puddles. Vec, with his cold resolve, steps over the flames, eyes locked on Malkoran, who gasps beneath him, still clinging to life, but battered. The divine presence of Meridia rings in his mind, urging him to end the suffering. As Vex's foot presses down, Malkorn's defiance echoes in the air, but Vex silences it with an unyielding smirk. It's not just about victory. It's about rewriting the very rules of the game. In the heart of a collapsing world, Vec Frostwain steps into a ruthless battle with destiny. As the corrupted shades stagger upward, he calmly executes his strategy, unleashing a fiery wolf familiar that collides with the shades, igniting them in a blaze. The oil trail from his previous ally feeds the flames, enveloping the world in a chaotic inferno. The heat pushes Malkoran into a scream of agony, his form melting away into ghostly puddles. Vec, with his cold resolve, steps over the flames, eyes locked on Malkoran, who gasps beneath him, still clinging to life, but battered. The divine presence of Meridia rings in his mind, urging him to end the suffering. As Vex's foot presses down, Malkorn's defiance echoes in the air, but Vex silences it with an unyielding smirk. It's not just about victory. It's about rewriting the very rules of the game. I swiftly dismissed those thoughts from my mind. Meridia might appear as a woman, but she was known as one of the princes. The other Daedric princes made me distance myself even further from those thoughts. For now, I focused on Dawnbreaker, my new sword. It was the mightiest weapon I could wield without forging one myself. Plus, I could upgrade it with Ebony and the Arcane Smithing perk, which I acquired thanks to my Atmora inheritance. Dawnbreaker's enchantment was perfect for dealing with almost anything. After all, most living things burn naturally. The enchantment would never fade, as it was a Daedric artifact. The Oathblade's enchantment had worn off, and the Pale Blade was only marginally stronger. So Dawnbreaker was by far the best weapon I could possess. After Meridia finished mocking Malkoran, she turned her attention to me. I felt a jolt. My body passed through the shrine's walls, and I ascended into the sky. This time, I was a little more prepared, so I didn't immediately feel nauseous. Meridia laughed, her voice ringing in my ears. Well, are you satisfied with my blade? Are you ready to become my champion now, mortal? I steadied myself, smirking. Is this conversation helpful so far? I quickly cleared them from my mind. Meridia might appear as a woman, but she was one of the princes, and the other Daedric princes made me push away any related thoughts. For now, I focused on my new sword, Dawnbreaker. It was the most powerful weapon I could wield without forging one myself, and with Ebony and Arcane Smithing, I could upgrade it. Its enchantment was perfect for dealing with nearly everything. After all, most living things burned naturally, and since it was a Daedric artifact, the enchantment would never fade. The Oathblade's enchantment was spent, and the Pale Blade was only slightly better. Dawnbreaker was, without a doubt, my best weapon. Once Meridia finished mocking Malkoran, she turned her attention to me. I felt my body jerk, and suddenly, I was passing through the shrine's walls, rising into the sky. This time, I was more prepared and didn't feel like I was about to vomit. Meridia laughed and spoke, Well, are you satisfied with my blade? Are you ready to become my champion, mortal? I smirked, clutching my stomach. I want to become a human god, one that stays on Nirn to guide others, Vec Frostwain declared. The silence that followed was thick, but then, a burst of laughter filled the air. I like your ambitions. The Aedra, they were fools, specially him, Tiber Septim. Mortals have their gods, but few last. The Daedric princes were always clashing, tiring ourselves out. But you, Vec Frostwain, I get it. Meridia's voice rang out. Stronger now, a flicker of intensity in her gaze. The sky shimmered, a powerful presence surrounding him. I won't ask you to serve me in death. You wanted my blade? It's weaker than it should be. Restore it, slay the undead, and I will let you keep your dream. A god of human innovation, perhaps? I'll strike you a deal I'd never offer anyone else. Her voice trailed off with a playful giggle, and the air between them shifted, leaving Vec with an undeniable sense of the gravity ahead. With the sky swelling and the weight of her gaze sending chills through my body, I stood face to face with her power. Restore my blade beyond its former glory, and I will show you how to permanently alter Daedric artifacts, weaving them into your very essence. Her words hung in the air like a challenge, each one heavier than the last. The deal was made, whether I wanted it or not. Her presence was overwhelming, shaking me to my core. Fail, and you will serve me as my champion in death, she threatened, the air thick with an undeniable certainty. I couldn't afford failure, not when the stakes were this high. Deal, I gritted out, holding on to the last bit of pride I had left. But I request a hint, her laugh echoed, both knowing and cold. You've already altered a Daedric artifact, haven't you? The sky flashed bright, blinding me as the weight of her words crashed down. I staggered back to the ground, soaked in sweat, my armor drenched in it. This was no ordinary quest, no simple task. As I rose and made my way toward solitude, The gravity of what I had agreed to began to settle in. I could no longer take things lightly. Things had changed. Do you like this personality? Chapter 57. Human ambitions unfolds with a moment of reflection for our protagonist, struggling to shake off the unsettling gaze of a Daedric prince. He takes a breath, steadying himself, as the weight of the world seems to press down on him. With an image to maintain in the City of Solitude, he marches ahead, resolute. The encounter with the guards is brief, but his destination is clear. He heads straight for the Winking Skeever, a familiar tavern where he finds Corpulus behind the bar. Their conversation turns to business, as our MC reveals he has gathered enough money to begin construction, though there's still much more to be done. The road ahead is long, but with his ambition fueling him, there's no turning back. The stakes are high, and he's ready to shape his future, one step at a time. Corpulus chuckled. Fair enough. I take it you're telling me this because you can get the funds for the renovations? I flashed my usual smirk. Of course! But what exactly will the renovations entail? I'd like to know what I'm paying for. Most traders were reliable, but no one wanted to deal with a Daedric cultist or a thief. Still, that didn't mean they couldn't be tricky. So I waited as Corpulus smirked back. Fair enough. Let me fetch the plans. He returned with several papers. As he flipped through them, a stray thought crossed my mind. The paper in my draconic dictionary was smooth and well made, unlike the thick, rough paper I had seen elsewhere. I could probably make a fortune in paper manufacturing. Corpulus came back. Here are the designs. I took the blueprints and started flipping through them, raising an eyebrow. With a grin, Corpulus chuckled. Fair enough. I'm guessing you're asking because you've got the means to fund the interior? I responded with my signature smirk. Of course! But I want the full picture. What exactly are these renovations about? I need to know what I'm paying for. Traders were generally trustworthy who wants to end up stabbed by a cultist or a thief. Still, they had their tricks, so I waited for him to explain. Corpulus returned the grin. Fair enough, let me get the plans. He walked off, returning with several sheets of paper. As he flipped through them, a thought crossed my mind. The paper in my draconic dictionary was smooth and well made, unlike the rough, thick sheets I was now holding. Maybe there was money to be made in paper manufacturing. Corpulus returned with the designs, and I took the blueprints from him. Flicking through the pages, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. He glanced at the blueprint, focusing on the back wall of the dining area. Is it the weight? Corpulus asked, peering over it. I chuckled. Exactly. If the wrong person books the third floor, or someone gets too rowdy, that wall is going to give way. It's already a load-bearing wall because it connects to the second floor staircase. Corpulus nodded, thinking, so you're anchoring the third floor to the wall. Are you talking about the city wall or the mountain itself? Steel hooks, heavy ropes, and crossguard planks. We could renovate it again later, I explained. Just then, Sorek stepped up, scanning the blueprint. What if we build a private bar there and sell the high-end drinks? We could even raise the price for the rooms on the third floor. I smirked. Luxury drinks for high-paying customers. If we set up a guild, we'll get some richer clients. They might need a place to stay while traveling. Corpulus rubbed his chin. Do you know any reliable workers? I grinned. Cheap and trustworthy or expensive and honest? The father and son exchanged a knowing look. In a world where loyalty and clean backgrounds are the ultimate trade-off, the line between good and bad is drawn. A little girl, curious as ever, interrupts the conversation, asking about who's cheap. As she casually asks for snack money, one character gives her a gold coin and advises her to learn the art of bargaining. It's a simple gesture, but it hints at a greater understanding of survival in a world that's anything but easy. The moment shifts, revealing the complexity of relationships when the conversation turns to the absent mother, hinting at a deeper history. Amid laughter, there's a quiet acknowledgement of the wisdom in teaching even the youngest how to navigate the world's rough edges. All of this, wrapped in a moment of levity, shows how even the smallest choices can ripple through larger, more complex paths. Is this conversation helpful so far? Minette asked me what was on my mind. Who's the cheap option? I shifted slightly. The easiest pick is Horm. Sorex's eyes darted. Right, he'll take anything that pays. His folks don't even cover his work at the stables. I snapped my fingers. Exactly. The downside? He'd be part-time, so we can't count on him every day. Corpulus placed a pen and paper in front of me. Write down the names, pros and cons. I jotted down the names of the 3 people in Solitude. Horm was the first, but the other 2 were new. Hilvarg, a Nord fisherman, and Thessia, an imperial maid. Both were unhappy in their current jobs. The downside with Hilvarg was his food situation. He only ate the fish he caught. Thessia, on the other hand, made a lot of money cleaning noble homes in Solitude, most of it coming from Erikr. Then there was Dirkethus, an Argonian captured by Thalmor. Somehow, he survived their torment. In a world where loyalty and clean backgrounds are the ultimate trade-off, the line between good and bad is drawn. A little girl, curious as ever, interrupts the conversation, asking about who's cheap. As she casually asks for snack money, one character gives her a gold coin and advises her to learn the art of bargaining. It's a simple gesture, but it hints at a greater understanding of survival in a world that's anything but easy. The moment shifts, revealing the complexity of relationships when the conversation turns to the absent mother, hinting at a deeper history. Amid laughter, there's a quiet acknowledgement of the wisdom in teaching even the youngest how to navigate the world's rough edges. All of this, wrapped in a moment of levity, shows how even T the Con was evident. And Vec knew he had to be saved, but he was ready to trade his life for it. Goldir, a Nord, came into consideration, but quickly got scratched off the list. Vec would have to help him destroy a necromancer in his family tomb, and being a noble of Whiterun made him a bit too distant and inconvenient. When Sorex asked about Goldir, Vec explained the complication: she was a noble, lived far away in Whiterun, and his quest wouldn't lead him to solitude. Corpulus, always thinking practically, chimed in, warning about Stormcloaks. Even if Vec took a neutral stance, there were no guarantees others wouldn't get involved. Then, Vec added Ilia to the mix, an enigmatic daughter of a witch coven. Her matron was a forsworn Hagraven acolyte, but Ilia had a strong moral compass. Helping her kill her coven could secure powerful protection for the inn, especially as Vec set up the new guild. Janassa, a trusted mercenary, would be another reliable hire to ensure extra security. Is this conversation helpful so far? His smallest choices can ripple through larger, more complex paths. Is this conversation helpful so far? Vec Frostwain is no longer bound by the world he once knew. With his Snow Elf legacy and mastery over tactics, he stumbled upon a hidden structure, protocol, legacy, a backdoor created by forgotten gods and developers. Armed with the Frozen Quill, he bends reality itself, rewriting quests, splintering across timelines, and activating relics best left undisturbed. He finds unlikely allies and corrupted echoes and foes among fallen deities. But the deeper he delves, the more unstable the world becomes. Reality warps, time twists, and soon he's face to face with the end loop Terminala failsafe that could reset everything. The catch? He must write a new ending before the system reboots itself. With fractured quests, echoes of past lives, and enemies from every corner of existence, Vec must decide, will he preserve this broken world or rewrite it entirely? Every choice leads him closer to the one question. Can he outwit the system that made him its last keyholder? I rubbed my chin thoughtfully. Sorex had a point. He'd been talking about me taking time to adventure while I can. I never really thought much about inheriting the winking skeever, but recently he kept insisting that I should take a break, explore, and enjoy the world before it's too late. It wasn't like him to suggest that. I'd always been caught up in running the tavern. I suppose diseases are easy enough to deal with, I said, mulling over it. The ones priests and potions can't fix are either deadly or curses. Corpulus should be able to buy a cure potion. Sorex gave a subtle nod, his gaze back on the list. He'll tell you when he's ready. I pointed toward Ilia on the map. I'm heading to the rift anyway. It's a long journey, but a powerful witch would be just what the guild needs for security. Sorex blinked at me, clearly curious. The rift? Why there? I sighed, preparing to explain. I need to climb up to High Hrothgar, though I'm hoping I won't have to. Sorex just nodded, then asked, Who's Darkethis? I pulled out my map and pointed to Darkwater Crossing in the rift. Another mission, a Thalmor camp. Sorex chuckled. So you're headed to the rift, huh? I nodded. Iverstead, but I'll be making a detour to gather some things along the way. My hope was to avoid other players or their marks. Darkethis was probably still around, though Ilia was a solid companion. If someone had started in Riften, they might have picked her up by now. Corpulus hadn't returned yet, though. I sighed. I need to get the rest of the money for the renovations. Sorex gave a nod. You bringing Vyri along? We both glanced at Vyri, still in the shadows. She has a drinking problem. Sorex shrugged. I don't even know where she gets the gold. I shook my head. She's getting it from all this in exchange for sparring with the guards. Sorex laughed, and I grabbed a bottle of mead before heading out for my next task. Chapter 58. Sequence. PT1 I had a few things to take care of before my journey to High Hrothgar. First on the list was talking to the Khajiits, so I headed toward the docks. As I walked, I thought about the other tasks ahead of me, especially the updated quest involving Canary. The quest log mentioned checking in on her and the Imperial Legion. I couldn't help but wonder what this quest was really about, what I needed to do next. Unlike the old days when quests were freeform, this one had a deadline. It seemed like it would take a lot of time, so I decided to put it off and focus on my own agenda. The real issue was with Jarl Elisif. Erikr had to go. His shady ties with the Thieves Guild, the Thalmor, and that notorious ship, the Dainty Slode, were problems I didn't want to deal with. And while Eriker betrayed the guild, he was still a problem. There was one more thing, though, Sybil. I needed her to make me some powerful scrolls, and her take on Dawnbreaker could be invaluable. My afterlife depended on it. If she was willing, I could trade my studies of the Skull of Corruption and the Razor for her help. But first, I had to deal with Eriker. Reaching the docks, I looked at the Dead Man's Dreadquite, the pirate-sounding name for a trade ship, but it worked. No one was likely to attack a ship with such a name. Do you like this personality? A Khajiit I had never met before, along with Rasad, were having a conversation. Greetings, Rasad. Who's this? I asked, greeted only by broad, toothy grins. The new Khajiit dipped his head. I am Kemja, from the southern lands. I'll be leading the new sea caravan, he introduced himself. I filed the name away. With a friendly smile, I asked, So, will your crew be seasoned sailors? Kemja nodded. My partner is currently tending to our kin, but we'll have 17 crew members. We might need more later. I decided the crew before seeing the ship. This Khajiit spoke more smoothly than the others, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Still, the mention of his partner caught my attention. You said partner and kin? I asked. Kemja grinned. Yes, my partner and kin are exploring the ship. I also inspected the tree you wanted us to export. Yes, export. We can sell the sap for 500 gold per bottle, thanks to a woman from Whiterun who provided most of the initial supplies. But the real question is, are your business partners okay with this? I had a solid answer ready. Sorex was fine with it, and we agreed not to inform Corpula sometimes. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So we kept the whole thing under wraps, but it was legal, so there were no issues. So, you two have everything in place? I asked. Kemja nodded. Yes, even Resat has an Argonian in the crew now. I raised an eyebrow. How did that happen? I can't think of any Argonian who would willingly join our business. Rasad chuckled. His name's Sand in Pockets, a life saved by a cat named Haralra. They've been inseparable since. Haralra is a healer, and Sand in Pockets serves as his bodyguard. From what I remember, Sand in Pockets was a banished shadow scale. Kemja jumped in as Rasad trailed off. He was banished for sparing a target. At that, Rasad burst into laughter. The journey unfolds as a hidden past surfaces, revealing a tale woven from fate and destiny. The priest, once the target of an assassin, unknowingly shapes the lives of those he saved, turning them into heroes. Their shared journey begins with a caravan's quest for the unknown, bound by the thread of survival and the desire to explore. As Vec Frostwain strides ahead, stepping into a world where rules bend and timelines fracture, the quest for reality becomes personal. Among the crew are Khajiit sailors, but one stands apart, a seasoned captain, capable of navigating even the stormiest seas. Alone with his thoughts, Vec sheds his armor, diving deep into the water's embrace. The search is on, with the weight of the world in every decision, as he uncovers secrets hidden beneath the surface. With every choice, every rewritten chapter, Vec reshapes his destiny, but the question remains, will he break the world or save it from the edge of collapse? I grabbed it and yanked it out of the dirt, choosing this method since I couldn't pick the lock naturally. As I resurfaced, I took a deep breath and threw the chest onto the dock, quickly climbing up after it. A guard approached, asking, What are you? What's in the chest? I shrugged. No clue. Saw it underwater, and it's locked. Probably some lost cargo. If you don't mind, I can find out where it came from. The guard nodded. All right. I'll come with you to turn it in. A new quest appeared, and I held back a smile. The task was clear. Find the chest's owner and anyone involved. It was an open quest, so I could skip steps. No problem. Finding out who it belongs to is important, I said. The guard agreed and helped carry the chest. As we walked, he made small talk. So, how did you see it underwater? I shifted the chest to reveal the still shiny lock. I spotted something glinting in the water, and when I leaned in closer, I saw a chest. With my trade business underway, I couldn't resist the curiosity. I knew I couldn't just leave it there. The guard gave me a nod. You're a good one, Vec, but about your business, are you sure about hiring those Khajiit? I nodded back. They've got the experience, trading with folks who aren't always fond of them. We carried on chatting lightly about solitude, but eventually, we reached Castle Dur. Captain Aldous gave us a strange look. Aye, Vec, what's this you've got? I flashed a grin and gestured to the guard. He took the cue, saluting Aldous. Vec found this chest at the Solitude docks. It's locked, so no one knows who it belongs to or what's inside. Aldous stroked his beard. Lost cargo, eh? He turned a suspicious look at me, then pointed at the guard. You are dismissed. The guard gave a quick nod before sprinting back. Aldous turned to me with a sly look. You know who that belongs to, don't you? I smirked. You know me too well. It's from Safia of the Dainty Slode. Aldous raised an eyebrow. Those guys? The Black Bloods weren't enough for you? I laughed. Not after them. Let's get inside and open this chest. I need to talk to Canary anyway. Aldous shot me a knowing look. You're planning something, aren't you? I said nothing. Striding into Castle Dewar with the chest in hand, Aldous trailing behind. Inside, we found Canary and General Tullius mid-conversation, but they stopped when we entered. The general waved us over. Come on, you two. We have some things to discuss. I placed the chest on the table and said, I'm sure we will. Canary pointed to it, asking, what's inside? Captain Aldous sighed, muttering, he probably doesn't know, but I'm certain he does. General Tullius shook his head. The chest can wait. I need to talk to you, Vec. It's Vec, right? I nodded. Yes, it is. This is about what Canary and I found, isn't it? She nodded. He wants to create a new station. Canary rolled her eyes. I glanced at Tullius, who shook his head. He sighed and began explaining. Since your discovery, tensions with the Thalmor embassy have risen, especially since they're so close to Solitude. He paused. Some of the higher-ups in the Legion think the Civil War may have been orchestrated from behind the scenes, especially those who oppose the White Gold Concordat. With this new discovery, we need more information. Tullius was a man of contradictions, decisive yet uncertain. So what's my role in all this? I asked, trying to make sense of the situation. I've made my allegiance clear. I'm with the Legion, but I'm no soldier, more like a mercenary, really. Canary nodded, a wry smile on her face. Ironically, that's what makes you perfect for this task. We need someone outside the regular ranks for a new operation, espionage. The pieces clicked into place. So, you want a group of unofficial Imperial-aligned agents. And me? I fit the bill because I'm currently jobless. I leaned back, intrigued. I'm not doing this alone, am I? Tullius met my gaze. You, Canary, and anyone you can recruit but keep it small. You'll report directly to Legionnaire Rikke or me. And your first mission, infiltrating the Thalmor embassy. The good news? I was supposed to attend a party they're hosting. Here. He slid an envelope across the table. Gather your team and let's make this happen. Do you like this personality? I placed the chest on the table and said, I'm sure we will. Canary pointed to it, asking, what's inside? Captain Aldous sighed, muttering, he probably doesn't know, but I'm certain he does. General Tullius shook his head. The chest can wait. I need to talk to you, Vec. It's Vec, right? I nodded. Yes, it is. This is about what Canary and I found, isn't it? She nodded. He wants to create a new station. Canary rolled her eyes. I glanced at Tullius, who shook his head. He sighed and began explaining. Since your discovery, tensions with the Thalmor embassy have risen, especially since they're so close to Solitude. He paused. Some of the higher-ups in the Legion think the Civil War may have been orchestrated from behind the scenes, especially those who oppose the White Gold Concordat. With this new discovery, we need more information. The Imperial Legion trusts you, and so does Solitude. But something bothered me. He didn't say he trusted Med, just gave me an envelope with a mission. The party's in 2 months, he said, and I nodded, adding items to my to-do list. The general waved me off. You're dismissed. As he walked away, Captain Aldous grumbled. That man, sometimes he's inspiring. Other times, well, you know. I didn't know him well myself, honestly. Not much lore to go on with Tullius. Canary gave me a look, then turned to leave, but I stopped her. Can you open this chest? She stared at me, surprised. You can't pick a lock? I shrugged. Not much of a thief. She rolled her eyes, turning to Aldous. You? He raised his hands. Not the most steady of hands. With a sigh, she pulled out a lock-picking kit and got to work, with Aldous and I peering over her shoulder at the chest. Totally useless. Do you like this personality? After a minute, she grumbled, would you two back off? So we did, not because she gave us a death glare. A minute later, she popped the chest open and whistled at the contents. Where did you find this? Aldous' eyes widened. Is that? I held back a laugh but couldn't stop smirking. Found it in the water by the docks? I suppose an official investigation's in order? Captain Aldous laughed. So you're after an Imperial investigation? If you are. Canary cut in. He's after a noble. They drained all the fun out of the moment, too smart to give me any satisfaction. I sighed, nodding. So, you want to hand me what I need to investigate this? Captain Aldous scratched his chin. Balmoral Blue is more dangerous than normal skooma. I assume you know the dealer? I smirked. And the consumer. The problem is, I don't have solid evidence. Canary sighed. I'll get you an Imperial seal and warrant. That made my next steps a lot easier. As Canary left, Captain Aldous looked at me. Can I ask who you're after? I raised an eyebrow and smiled. I don't want to say too much. If things go wrong, I'll just eliminate them. Aldous frowned. I'll take that as a joke, but what's the point? I shrugged. I was hired, but it fits my goals to get rid of them. Does that work? Aldous nodded. It does. Keep me updated if you find anything. I chuckled just as Canary came back with what I needed. If? More like when. I grabbed the paper she handed me and marched out. Behind me, I heard her ask Aldous something, but I wasn't concerned. I read the document more than I expected. Not specific, but forceful. I rolled it up and pocketed it. Time to track Eriker. The investigation notice and sealed warrant made things easier. Is this conversation helpful so far? It didn't stop Eriker from keeping secrets. So my plan? Watch his every move. I needed to see his house. His housecarl, maids, and sister all seemed to hang around there. Now that I own Proudspire, I could use that as an excuse to check out the area. Time for a stakeout. Chapter 60, A Shift in the World. Watching Eriker's house day and night turned out to be way more boring than I imagined, especially since I was stuck sitting on a wall all night. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. I really needed rest, but I couldn't level up lately due to the belt side effects. Eriker left again, thankfully with Gisli and Meloran, leaving just the maid and housecarl behind. Meloran was Eriker's housecarl, and Gisli had her own, a bear of a man named Gao, who I suspected she was with. He acted as her housecarl and had a room upstairs. I climbed up Proudspire's back wall and sneaked into Eriker's house, planning to enter through the third floor. The lower level seemed to be for the kitchen and storage, while the second floor was where the housecarls hung out. Tullius was a man of contradictions, decisive yet uncertain. So what's my role in all this? I asked, trying to make sense of the situation. I've made my allegiance clear. I'm with the Legion, but I'm no soldier, more like a mercenary, really. Canary nodded, a wry smile on her face. Ironically, that's what makes you perfect for this task. We need someone outside the regular ranks for a new operation, espionage. The pieces clicked into place. So, you want a group of unofficial Imperial-aligned agents. And me? I fit the bill because I'm currently jobless. I leaned back, intrigued. I'm not doing this alone, am I? Tullius met my gaze. You, Canary, and anyone you can recruit but keep it small. You'll report directly to Legionnaire Rikke or me. And your first mission, infiltrating the Thalmor embassy. The good news? I was supposed to attend a party they're hosting. Here. He slid an envelope across the table. Gather your team and let's make this happen. Do you like this personality? I thought women hid diaries in their underwear, but I shrugged it off and tossed the broken glass shards into the dresser. I didn't want that junk in my inventory. I scoured the room, checking every corner and under the bed, but all I found was a locked strongbox on a desk, no way to open it, so I tossed it into my inventory. It could be filled with notes or jewelry. Who knew? After clearing Gilsey's room, I cautiously checked the door to Eriker's room. The door was ajar, and I heard a faint hum. I drew Dawnbreaker, but hesitated, swapping it for the Lucky Dagger, which, although it didn't boost my crits, was less noticeable. With fluid precision, I pressed the dagger to the maid's throat. She dropped her broom in panic, and I silenced her quickly, warning her not to scream. She nodded, trembling, as I demanded she tell me where Eriker kept his documents. After a moment's hesitation, she stammered, "His desk has a hidden pocket." I thought women hid diaries in their underwear, but I shrugged it off and tossed the broken glass shards into the dresser. I didn't want that junk in my inventory. I scoured the room, checking every corner and under the bed, but all I found was a locked strongbox on a desk, no way to open it, so I tossed it into my inventory. It could be filled with notes or jewelry. Who knew? After clearing Gilsey's room, I cautiously checked the door to Eriker's room. The door was ajar, and I heard a faint hum. I drew Dawnbreaker, but hesitated, swapping it for the Lucky Dagger, which, although it didn't boost my crits, was less noticeable. With fluid precision, I pressed the dagger to the maid's throat. She dropped her broom in panic, and I silenced her quickly, warning her not to scream. She nodded, trembling, as I demanded she tell me where Eriker kept his documents. After a moment's hesitation, she stammered, "His desk has a hidden pocket." I heard shouting, followed by the sound of a door slamming shut. That maid sure was fast. I caught a murmur about Gal hurting her neck again, but I wasn't interested in the drama, so I continued my way down the stairs. I stopped at the first room on the second floor, immediately recognizing it as Meloran's. An enchanting table sat in the corner, surrounded by several metal staves on a distant desk. I moved quickly, grabbing anything valuable and leaving the trash behind. Among the things I found were several charcoal pencils, just like the ones I used for writing. I snatched them up and made a mental note to look into graphite or ballpoint pen production. My tongue clicked in irritation when I found another locked box. This time, I didn't waste time. I cast Frost Shock on it, feeling the lock crack under the force of my magic. With a quick pull, the box opened and its contents spilled out several black soul gems, a few keys, and a small notebook. I picked up the soul gems and examined them closely. They were filled! Now, that was definitely interesting. I pocketed the lock keys too and flipped open the notebook. Pages overflowed with arcane ramblings, but one entry snapped my attention. Sabile. He'd seen her for what she truly was, a vampire, her spell shattered by a black soul gem. That gem didn't just free him, it exposed his paranoia. He'd spotted me showing her a Daedric artifact though, which, one, he didn't say, but he suspected I knew her secret. Turns out, I'm immune to charm magic. His notes weren't half bad either, worth stealing. Too bad he served the wrong master. I dashed back to Eriker's room. The maid mentioned the desk, but I tore the place apart first. When I finally jammed that silver key in the lock, it clicked, revealing a trove. Papers, letters, a full ledger. Jackpot. I smirked and grabbed the papers. Let's see. Flipping through them, I froze when the world shifted. The entire house shook and then a boom reverberated through the air. It was a sound I recognized all too well, and it hit me harder than I expected. It was the voice of the Greybeards. The Dragonborn had officially awakened. I quickly shoved the documents into my inventory, rushing back to Gilsey's room. Without thinking, I dove out the window, landing hard in the bushes below. The wind knocked out of me, but I pushed myself up and ran. Thoughts swirled in my head, ideas for new spells, and the constant question, should I add more, push limits without going too far? Could I craft something satisfying without falling into the usual traps of romance or materialism? Time to decide. But the world was already spinning out of control.